The Walking Dead universe spans over a decade of history, and almost none of it makes sense unless you understand how it started. Everyone was already infected before the first person dropped. That changes everything about how this world works. So today, I'm breaking down the entire Walking Dead timeline from day 1 to the final episode. Starting with the day the world ended. The global outbreak, sometime in 2010. That's roughly when the wildfire virus goes pandemic and civilization starts its speed run to extinction. The exact date is never pinned down, which honestly makes it creepier. But here's the thing, most people miss. The virus was already inside every living human before anyone knew what was happening. You didn't need to get bitten. You just needed to die, and people started dying fast. Within the first year, global population drops by more than 90%. Cities fall in weeks. The military rolls out Operation Cobalt, which is a fancy name for "we're leaving," and you're on your own. They abandon civilian safe zones, and in some areas bomb entire population centers to slow the spread, which is, not ideal. Meanwhile, Dr. Edwin Jenner at the CDC tries desperately to map the virus. He fails, destroys his own lab, declares the pathogen has won. Just a guy in a bunker watching brain scans and drinking wine. Now here's the part people get wrong. Bites don't transmit the virus, because you already have it. A walker bite delivers a cocktail of bacteria that triggers a lethal infection. That infection kills you. Then the virus you were already carrying reanimates your brain. The bite doesn't make you a walker. Dying does. But if the outbreak itself sounds bad, wait until you hear what happens when the survivors try to actually build something from the ashes. The Atlanta camp and farm days. Rick Grimes wakes up from a coma and stumbles into a world that's already 2 months dead. By October 2010, he finds the Atlanta Survivor Camp, a collection of exposed tents near Interstate 85 and Bellwood Quarry, with 0 fortifications, and a survival strategy that basically amounts to hope for the best. The group scavenges runs into overrun Atlanta for supplies, which is about as safe as it sounds. After walkers tear through the camp, the survivors flee to Herschel Green's farm, and for a brief, almost cruel moment, it feels like the old world still exists. Livestock roam. Canned food is plentiful. Herschel even keeps walkers locked in his barn because he genuinely believes they're sick people who can be cured. Just patients waiting for medicine that will never come. Here's where it gets complicated. Shane Walsh wants to make hard calls. Shoot first, abandon the weak if necessary. Rick wants to hold on to something resembling morality. This isn't just a personality clash. It's the philosophical argument that defines the entire franchise. Does survival require you to become a monster? Or can you stay human and still keep people alive? The barn scene answers that question with a gunshot. The group executes every walker Herschel had been protecting, including Sophia, a child they'd spent weeks searching for. Rick watches it happen and realizes that leadership in this world means being willing to pull the trigger when nobody else will. Which is, not ideal, but none of it matters. A massive herd sweeps across the farm and destroys everything. Turns out no amount of fencing built for cattle can stop the dead when they move as one. But if the farm taught them that nowhere is safe, the prison is about to teach them something worse. That other people are the real threat. The prison and Woodbury conflict. This is the first real war in the franchise, and it sets the template for every conflict that follows. After months on the road, Rick's group stumbles on the Meriwether County Correctional Facility in June 2011, roughly 1 year after day 1. They clear it, claim it, and transform it into something that looks almost sustainable. Crops in the prison yard, rainwater collection, infirmaries. For the first time since the outbreak, they're not just surviving, they're building. At the same time, about an hour away, there's Woodbury, a walled town with generator-powered electricity, armed patrols, and a population possibly exceeding 100. On the surface, it's paradise. Community dinners, safety, normalcy. But underneath, the governor is running a textbook dictatorship. He delivers safety and comfort while enforcing secrecy, surveillance, propaganda, and clandestine killings of anyone he deems a threat. And here's the thing, he stages gladiatorial walker fights for entertainment, which tells you everything about how twisted that normalcy really is. The juxtaposition is deliberate. The prison represents repurposed institutional security, raw and functional. Woodbury represents a restored town under authoritarian control, polished and sinister. Both are experiments in what civilization might look like after the fall, and both are about to annihilate each other. The war involves raids, sniper duels, sabotage, and eventually a tank assault on the prison. It's the first explicit community versus community conflict the series shows, and it's brutal. The governor's paranoia and ego poison everything he built, and Rick's group, despite their best efforts, can't hold the line. Both communities are effectively destroyed. Woodbury is abandoned, the prison is overrun after its defenses are breached, and survivors scatter. Nobody wins. But if you think one authoritarian tyrant was bad, wait until you see what happens when a network of communities tries to stand against an entire system of extortion backed by a charismatic psychopath with a baseball bat. The Alexandria Arrival and Savior Wards. Alexandria wasn't some lucky find. It was a pre-planned residential community developed by a congressman named Deanna Monroe and her husband, an architecture professor who designed the whole layout with sustainability in mind. Steel-reinforced walls, solar panels, efficient street grid, all part of an eco-friendly housing development that just happened to be perfectly suited for surviving the apocalypse. But here's where it gets interesting. Alexandria doesn't just become another walled settlement. It becomes the center of a functioning network of communities that actually depend on each other. Hilltop supplies grain. The kingdom contributes military strength. Oceanside brings fishing. Alexandria handles construction and technical skills. For the first time, this isn't just about surviving. It's about building something. And then Negan shows up and ruins everything, which is, not ideal. The Saviors operate out of the Sanctuary, an industrial plant fortified with walker-filled pits, running a protection racket on a regional scale. Pay up or die. But here's the thing that makes Negan genuinely fascinating. He actually built a system that works. Workers earn points through labor, exchangeable for food and medicine. It's a functioning economy. It's also monstrous, because layered on top is a coercive wives arrangement and spectacular public executions designed to make people internalize obedience. Negan doesn't need to watch everyone. He just needs everyone to believe he's watching. It's a panopticon built on a baseball bat. The all-out war ends with the federated communities defeating the Saviors through coordinated military action. But the real turning point isn't the battle, it's what happens after. Rick spares Negan, slashes his throat, then orders him saved and imprisoned. Maggie is screaming. Half the audience is screaming. And still, nobody fully agrees on whether it was the right call. But if you think the community's finally earned some peace, wait until you hear about the group that wears the dead as clothing, the Whisperer War, and A New Beginning. After Rick Grimes is airlifted away by a CRM helicopter and presumed dead, the show does something it's never done before. It jumps forward 6 years. One moment, you're watching a bridge explode, and the next, everything is different. Kids have grown up. Communities have councils, schools, trade routes, and something that almost looks like peace. And that's exactly the point. You need to see what peace looks like, so it hurts when it gets ripped away. By this era, Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom, and Oceanside have evolved into genuinely interconnected societies. They hold a massive gathering called the Fair of New Beginning, where representatives sign a charter formally creating the coalition. Mutual defense, shared trade, common values. For the first time in the apocalypse, civilization isn't just surviving, it's organizing. Then the Whisperers show up. Here's the thing about the Whisperers. Every villain before them wanted to control civilization. The Whisperers don't want any of it. They think civilization itself is the problem. They wear the skins of walkers, move inside massive herds, and live as nomads who've deliberately abandoned every comfort of the old world. Their leader, Alpha, believes humanity needs to return to its most animalistic state. She views walled communities as delusional relics of a world that's already dead. And she backs up that philosophy with violence on a scale nobody's seen before. They weaponize megaherds and aim them at settlements like living artillery. They mark territorial borders with pikes topped by decapitated heads. The Fair Massacre, where Alpha personally selects and beheads people from every allied community, is one of the most shocking moments in the entire franchise. No build-up, no negotiation. Just a row of heads on spikes. The conflict ends when Negan infiltrates the group and assassinates Alpha, and the Coalition destroys the megaherd. But the cost is enormous. Hilltop burns. The kingdom collapses. Trust between communities is deeply frayed. They won. But what they won back barely resembles what they had before. Which is probably why, when a massive new civilization called the Commonwealth comes knocking, not everyone is thrilled about the offer. The Commonwealth integration. 12 years into the apocalypse, humanity finally rebuilds a city, and immediately fills it with all the same problems cities had before. The Commonwealth is a settlement of approximately 50,000 people spread across multiple zones in Ohio, and it functions less like a survivor camp and more like a mid-sized city-state. We're talking currency, shops, wages, concerts, sporting events, biofuel production, a standing army, and a full bureaucratic government. On paper, it's the most impressive thing anyone has built since the world ended. In practice, it's a class system wearing a nice suit. Here's the thing. When you arrive at the Commonwealth, you're assessed based on what you did before the apocalypse. Doctors and lawyers get fast-tracked into privileged positions. Former service workers get slotted right back into the bottom. 13 years of surviving the literal end of civilization, and your pre-apocalypse tax bracket still determines where you sleep. Which is, not ideal. At the top of this pyramid sits Governor Pamela Milton, daughter of a former US president, and she is a genuinely fascinating villain because she's not a warlord. She's a politician. She smiles at you while rigging elections. She shakes your hand while her enforcer Lance Hornsby makes inconvenient people disappear under something called Designation 2. You get that label, and you're gone. No trial, no explanation, just gone. But the cracks start showing. Connie's investigative journalism exposes the illegal disappearances, the unequal resource distribution. The backroom deals with outside powers. The biofuel that could help everyone, reserved for government vehicles. The democracy that supposedly exists, a performance. And once General Mercer, the head of the Commonwealth Army and a man who genuinely believed in the system, sees undeniable proof that the regime is rotten, he defects. That's the domino that triggers a full revolution. The series finale shows a Commonwealth that survives, but transforms. Pamela is removed. Democratization begins. Judith and RJ grow up safely within its walls. It proves that large-scale civilization can come back from reproducing its worst instincts, but only if people are willing to tear down the rot and rebuild honestly. But if the Commonwealth is civilization with a corruption problem, the Civic Republic military is something far more dangerous. It's corruption with a civilization problem. The Civic Republic military era. While every faction in this franchise thinks they're the ones who will save humanity, the CRM actually has the infrastructure to back it up. And that's exactly what makes them terrifying. The Civic Republic military grew out of the Pennsylvania National Guard, merging with whatever was left of the armed forces during the early outbreak. While the rest of the country was falling apart under Operation Cobalt, General Beale orchestrated a bloody coup, seizing critical military resources and consolidating power into what would become the most dangerous organization in the entire franchise. Pennsylvania itself was supposed to be bombed. Instead, it became the foundation of a shadow empire. Behind heavily guarded walls in or near Philadelphia, the Civic Republic houses over 200,000 people. That's not a settlement, that's a city. And its exact coordinates are intentionally hidden, even from allied communities. The CRM is part of a 3-city alliance with Omaha and Portland, which sounds cooperative until you learn what they did to Omaha. The CRM deployed chemical gas across the entire settlement and the campus colony in Nebraska, wiping out tens of thousands of civilians because leadership determined they'd eventually become a resource drain. They murdered an allied city to balance a spreadsheet, which is, not ideal. Here's where it gets even more unsettling. The CRM classifies every outsider as either an A or a B. Strong, independently minded leaders get tagged as A, meaning they're flagged for experimentation. More compliant people get labeled B, useful but expendable. Rick Grimes himself was abducted as an A and later reclassified depending on what the CRM needed from him. Human beings reduced to inventory categories that shift based on military convenience. Meanwhile, CRM scientists are running walker research across continents, including experiments at French laboratories that produced fast, aggressive variant walkers capable of running down survivors. And back home, the Civic Republic's Civilian Council technically governs democratically, but they have zero knowledge of the genocides, the classification system, or the overseas experiments. Citizens live in comfort. The military commits atrocities in their name. Two realities existing inside the same walls. But if the CRM represents the biggest hidden power in this universe, the next era introduces threats that nobody saw coming, including the dead themselves changing the rules. The New Frontier and Variant Walker Emergence. While the main show focuses on groups like the Saviors and the CRM, the broader Walking Dead universe has been quietly running parallel experiments in post-apocalyptic governance. In Telltale's A New Frontier, David Garcia and his old army unit start as a desperate survival band, which is fair enough, but over time, they evolve into the authoritarian ruling force of New Richmond, a walled settlement that controls resources and makes life-or-death decisions about who gets food and medicine. It's basically Woodbury, with a different coat of paint. Across every continuity in this franchise, the pattern is identical. State collapses, power vacuum opens, former military guys fill it with coercive diplomacy and a whole lot of intimidation. It's the apocalypse's most reliable export. But here's where things get genuinely terrifying, because while humans keep repeating the same political mistakes, the walkers are getting worse. Season 11 reintroduces walkers that can climb walls, open doors, and pick up objects. The show labels them as variants. Here's the thing, though. These behaviors were already present in Season 1. Morgan's reanimated wife turned a doorknob. A child walker picked up a teddy bear. Those details vanished for years, and now they're back. The franchise accidentally foreshadowed its own future in Episode 1 and then forgot about it for a decade. I don't know what to tell you, and it gets worse. The World Beyond post-credits scene reveals that a French lab created walkers with extreme speed, aggression, and acidic blood. These aren't shamblers anymore. Daryl Dixon features acid walkers created through experimentation, while Dead City introduces Walker Kings, multiple zombies fused into a single superorganism. Basically a rat king made of corpses. Cool. That's also a thing that exists now. Every wall, every gate, every defensive strategy in this franchise was designed for slow, stupid walkers. Walls don't work when something can climb them. Doors don't work when something can turn the handle. The dead aren't decaying into irrelevance. They're diversifying. And that means the undead threat isn't a problem humanity can simply outlast. It's an arms race, and the walkers are winning rounds nobody expected them to compete in. But if the walkers are evolving and settlements keep growing, the real question becomes whether humanity can build something permanent in a world that refuses to stay predictable. The long-term future. As of the latest spin-offs, the Walking Dead universe has pushed roughly 12 to 15 years past the outbreak. And for the first time in the entire franchise, humanity isn't just surviving, it's actually building something. New Babylon is the clearest proof of that. This isn't another walled compound where everyone huddles behind steel and praise. It's a federation with open streets, active commerce, and marshals who patrol the roads to keep them clear of walkers and crime. People walk around outside. They trade. They argue about normal things. After everything we've covered in this video, that image alone is kind of staggering. But here's the projected timeline for full recovery, and it's humbling. Between 20 and 50 years post-outbreak, entire regions could be restored, with roads cleared, rivers navigated, and populations regrowing to maybe half of what they were before. Between 50 and 100 years, actual nations could reappear with real laws, economies, and leadership structures. And after 100 years, humanity might reconnect on a global scale, linking regional civilizations through revived trade and communication networks. The economy shifts from globalized capitalism to decentralized barter and mercantile systems, with larger factions like the Commonwealth, CRM, and New Babylon eventually re-establishing factories, computing technologies, and energy production, including solar and biofuel. Here's the thing though, every single human death still triggers reanimation. That means walkers can never be fully eradicated without a cure. They're not a temporary crisis. They're an endemic, permanent feature of life on Earth. Your grandkids will deal with them. Their grandkids will deal with them. Entire institutions, religions, and cultures will form around that reality. New generations who never knew the old world will grow up thinking this is just how things are. Stories and myths will emerge that reinterpret the fall of civilization in ways we can't even predict. And that's the real thesis of The Walking Dead. It was never about zombies. It was always about what kind of civilization humanity chooses to build when given a second chance. The series' closing image of Judith and RJ living safely in a reformed commonwealth tells you everything. "We are the ones who live" isn't just a slogan. It's the whole point. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.